Hello everyone, so first impressions video for you today. I haven't had the best of weeks, to be honest. I was having a bit of an intimate moment with my wife the other day and things got a bit hairy, if you know what I mean. So afterwards I said, look, before we do this again, here's some money, go and get yourself a Brazilian. She took it quite well. I was pleasantly surprised. She said, "Oh, darling, that's really nice of you, thank you." And I got a call the next day. I was out, and she said, "Darling, come home now. I want you in the bedroom. I've got the Brazilian." So I'm like, "Great, we're in. This should be great." I went home, and unfortunately, I found her in bed with a rather athletic young man called Edilson, who's apparently a male escort, originally from Sao Paulo. Hello everyone, so I was out when the post came. I think I missed my delivery, but I'm hoping it's Pineapple Vintage X Batch. So let's go to the post office and see if they've got it. Okay, welcome back everyone. So today we're going to be having a look at our first impressions on Pineapple Vintage X Batch. So I've got my parcel here, just received this one in the post today. Never smelt it before, let's get stuck in. I think there's one other fragrance in here which I think is Bois de Mystère, also by Parfums Vintage. But I'm just going to focus on the Pineapple Vintage X Batch today. Okay, so here it is, and let's get stuck into that one. I'll just show you the other one. There is the darker box Bois de Mystère. I'll be doing a first impressions and or review on that one soon. But let's have a look at Pineapple Vintage X Batch. Do I need scissors to get into that one? Yes. So, well wrapped and safely delivered. Thank you very much to Parfums Vintage for sending me this one. So, let's have a look at it. The box there, it looks like that. Wow, I love the box. It's shiny, gold, similar to other Pineapple Vintages. I thought it was just called X Batch, but it is Pineapple Vintage X Batch. With their other couple of recent releases, Suave and Bois de Mystère, don't have the Pineapple Vintage bit in the name. So this one apparently is going to be basically a cross between Aventus and or Pineapple Vintage Intense and Dior Sauvage. So that could be really interesting. One of the most popular, good performing, but somewhat mainstream generic designer fragrances of recent years, and the ever popular Creed Aventus. So Pineapple Vintage in its various forms I really like, particularly the original Pineapple Vintage and the Intense version. Let's have a look at what we've got here. So it looks something like this. We've got a very attractive bottle. The sticker is nice. I prefer that to the stickers that they gave us on Suave, which I thought were actually a little bit basic, but it's not the actual sort of embossed fancy thing that you got in the original. It's just a 50ml bottle. So let's find out a little bit more information about the fragrance and then we'll test it. Okay, so Pineapple Vintage X Batch comes in a 50ml bottle and the price of that one is $69. It's an eau de parfum. Top notes are pineapple and blackcurrant. In the mid we have bergamot, neroli, lavender, Virginia cedarwood, and in the base patchouli, vetiver and ambroxan. Damien Stammers, the perfumer for this one, has described it like this. X Batch takes the best of a Sauvage accord and replaces the synthetic metallic top and mid notes with a large amount of naturals in the form of bergamot, blackcurrant, neroli, lavender, and the Pineapple Vintage Intense accord. You'll notice that the opening hour of the fragrance is very dynamic, with blackcurrant bouncing off intense pineapple before the neroli-backed bergamot leads the smooth transition into the lavender-laden Sauvage accord in a very natural way, completely without the polarizing aspects. Okay, so there was some information. Let's see how this one smells. So I'll wear it as my scent of the day. I posted on Instagram today my scent was actually Essenza this morning, but I've just had a bath, so I'm clean and I can have 2 scents today, can't I? So here we go. Big spray. Let's do 2. First impressions. Okay, first impression, at this point in time, very much Pineapple Vintage smell, very very similar to the original Pineapple Vintage and or Pineapple Vintage Intense. Very fresh, really crisp. Maybe there's something a little bit different, then it's not quite the same as Pineapple Vintage. So they've got the note of ambroxan in there, which comes from the Dior Sauvage, so it's going to be less of an Aventus clone. It's going to be 50-50 maybe Aventus with Sauvage. Whether that's a good thing or not, let's find out. Very nice opening. Nothing incredible. If you're used to Pineapple Vintage, you'll sort of be used to this smell. So I'll put a little bit more on. I won't go mad because I don't know how strong it is. I've got to go to work. So let's just go with that many sprays. And I'll come back later and see what we think of this one after wearing it for about half a day. Okay, so here we are, everyone. It's later that night. Wore it for a good few hours today and did some resprays. So obviously the performance I can't judge too much because I was respraying. Kept wanting to respray and try and get the opening notes and all that kind of thing. So batch X definitely does what they've said they're setting out to do. It is really halfway between Dior Sauvage and Creed's Aventus, which I've sprayed them on cards and tested them next to each other a little bit today. And I think this one is a very, very mass appealing, pleasant kind of scent that is going to be liked by everybody. It really is 50-50 between, it's got that kind of freshness of Pineapple Vintage. It maybe doesn't have quite the obvious pineapple note of Pineapple Vintage, but it's got this the crispness, the citrusy feeling of Pineapple Vintage, that sharpness, and it definitely has that sort of soapy, somewhat metallic scent that we associate with Dior Sauvage in a good way, that popular, masculine, modern kind of smell. So this for me so far, a very, very likeable, mass appealing scent. Performance seemed good. I wore it to work, did a quick spray, one or two more, and actually wore it on the treadmill at the gym. I like to do that, you sweat a little bit, but it was a really good freshie. Nothing obnoxious came up even when I was sweating at the gym on the treadmill. Very, very fresh, masculine, somewhat modern, and if you like Aventus, if you like Dior Sauvage, you're going to like this one. It really is kind of halfway between the two. So they've done a good job of doing what it says on the tin. Do I prefer it to Pineapple Vintage Intense? At this point, I'm not quite going to say that yet. I think I would prefer Pineapple Vintage Intense because I'm not a huge Ambroxan fan. But I think for a lot of people looking for a mass appealing scent, this could be a compliment getter. The other negatives on this one, the price is $69 for a 50ml bottle. It's not super cheap, so it has that problem that things like Dior fragrances have, where it's a sort of a clone or not an original niche house, but the price is not super cheap. Now I think that I can sense that the ingredients in this one are of a really good quality. I know Damien Stammers would certainly say that the bergamot, the neroli that he's using are way above the quality of things that we get in, your Afnan clones or your Club, Armaf clones. Also, I should have mentioned there is a bit of sweetness, that black currant fruitiness, and maybe some vanilla, that kind of thing. It does have this certain sweetness that I get in Aventus too, and I really enjoyed having that in there in this one. But it doesn't feel quite, because of the packaging and stuff, like a niche fragrance. The other thing is, I wish that they would go back to the proper bottles like this with the proper thing on there, that sticker. I wish, Damien, that you would get back to these. I know it probably costs a little bit more money, but that looks really classy. This plasticky sticker, not quite so much so. First impression then, definitely going to be a real crowd pleaser. I will come, it is a first impression, so this is not my final verdict. Very, very populist, fresh, easy to like. Probably, I haven't got any compliments yet, I only worked for one day. Probably a real compliment getter and a real no-brainer and a winner. So interested in this one so far. Downsides on it, the price is not super cheap. It's not exactly original, but I guess it is original. No one crossed Aventus with Sauvage yet, so I'll give him credit for that. And it smells really, really lovely. Would it be worth rushing out and buying a bottle for you, the consumer? Well, I'm going to come back and do another video on that so far. So my verdict so far, it does what it says on the tin. It is really a cross between Aventus and Dior Sauvage. Let's see if it's as good as or a viable alternative to those. But so far, interesting, like it, very fresh, and the kind of scent that everybody is going to like for sure. Let me know what you thought of my first impressions video. See you in the next video. Whatever we're doing in life, let's project. Bye-bye.